In a Violent Nature. This is a Canadian experimental slasher horror movie. Those things put together might turn you off immediately. This is one of these movies, and I'm Canadian, so I'd like to support my Canadian brothers and sisters in their horror endeavors, but this is yet another example of one of these kind of weird experimental movies. Skinamarink, another Canadian experimental horror movie, more of just of a nightmare, a 2 hour long nightmare. And I don't mean nightmare to watch, though some people would say it's a nightmare to watch it. This one's done in a slasher setting. It's a camp. It's like a Jason or Burning or Sleepaway Camp. It's not POV, it's third person. So it's like a video game. So you see the killer walking around. So I'd probably say like 90% of the movie is, from behind of the killer. So you're watching the killer walk around, go and grab stuff. And, he sets up bodies and kills the people and goes and collects his weapons and his mask. So you get to see all this stuff. So just think of like, let's say Friday 13th, think of Friday the 13th, but instead of seeing the counselors or the campers talking, when they're talking, you're not seeing that. You're seeing what Jason's doing. That's the concept. It's actually a very cool concept. I'm not sure if I've seen it done before. I can't recall. I haven't seen every horror movie there is, but I'm sure someone in the comments will let me know if there's another one that's similar to this. So again, Ennis Men, that's another experimental one. Now that's a lo-fi, same with Skinamarink. This one is shot very nicely. It is very clear. And we're going to talk about this movie using my, of course, space system. So story, pacing, artistry, characters, and enjoyment. In each category, you get a score between 0 and 2. So 2 is the best you can get. My space system is used to compare the movie to itself and its promise. So I'm not comparing this to Die Hard or something. This is a sort of low-budget horror movie. So you have to think like Halloween, Friday the 13th, this kind of a thing. You wouldn't be comparing this to like The Conjuring or something like that. And it is an experimental horror movie, so there's that to consider. The space system doesn't always really work for every movie. It works for probably like 95% of any movie you see. It kind of works here because there is a structure to it. Like it didn't really work for Skinamarink, because that was a weird, nightmare movie. Like, what's the storyline? Like, So this one does have somewhat of a storyline. I am going to give the storyline a 0.5. So basically 0 is garbage and 2 is amazing. Now, this movie is not marketing you as a great story, and most slasher movies are not going to have great stories. Like, Friday 13th, what's the story? You give it a 1. Like, again, space system, based on that, you'd give it a 1 because you're like, yeah, it was okay. This one, because there's just really no story at all, or very small one, it's hard to evaluate it. So I'm going to give it a 0.5. What's there is neat, I guess. There's a guy named Johnny who is the killer, supposedly, I guess, and he was a kid, and there was a mix-up, and like he died, and then he came back or whatever, and there's this necklace. It's all this kind of stuff that in all these slasher movies. It's very generic, but there's not much of it, so I can't evaluate it really. Like, what was there was okay, but there wasn't a lot, so I'll give it a 0.5. The pacing is actually pretty good. It's 95 minutes, but and normally that would be perfect. Like, that's perfect slasher movie length. But I'm going to give the pacing a 1.5. I'm not going to give it a 2 because there's a lot of times, and I think some people might disagree with me on the pacing. They might even just give it a 1, or they might give it a 0.5 or even a 0 because they might think it's very slow. I was into it. I watched it late night. I started the movie at like 9:40 or something p.m. All lights out, so just me watching. Now it is in the old kind of full, what they used to call like the full frame, which was the TVs. You'd think your TV, and remember the sides were cut off or whatever. So it's done in that kind of way, which is, I guess, is neat. But it is. I'll get to the artistry, but it does look very good. So it's not doing that Ennis Men or Skinamarink where it's like lo-fi, where it's like you can't tell what's going on half the time because it's so grainy or just like poor quality. But the pacing gets killed like pretty badly in the last act. There's a part where, I'm not going to spoil anything, but there's a part where this character appears driving. They're driving a truck, and there's a very long dialogue sequence. And I understand the filmmakers are trying to say this is the point of the movie. Like there's just a violent nature in some things, and it just can't be helped or whatever. And they are trying to tie it in with what happened in the movie. But I think most people are just going to be like, yeah, what is this? Like, why is this even happening? And why is this so long? And I think that it is very long. And I'm not sure if, I'm almost thinking they tried to pad the time of the movie to get it past your 80 minutes or whatever. Like, there's a certain time, I don't remember what it is, to get to festivals. You have to be, and be a film, you have to be a certain amount of time. I don't know, someone maybe can tell me. It's like 80 minutes or something, or 82 or whatever it is. So a lot of things seemed padded out. You're like, okay, this guy's walking around for a while. You're like, all right. Now they do cut a little bit, like he's walking towards these guys he's going to kill. You're like, oh my God, you're thinking by the time he walks there, this movie's going to be like half an hour longer than, and then they just kind of cut and then he's closer, because you get the idea, he's just walking. So I actually thought the pacing was good. I wasn't bored about halfway through or whatever. I thought, okay, this is just getting going. I looked at my watch and I'm like, wow, this is already like, 45 minutes in. I thought, okay, this is pretty good. So the pacing is hurt by that last bit, because you're just kind of like, okay, wrap this movie up. For the artistry, I'm actually going to give it a 2 out of 2, which seems crazy, but the shots are really nice. It looks good. I actually think that frame looks good. There's no music, so you can't really evaluate the music because there isn't any. So it's not like there's bad music, there just really isn't. Most of the sounds you hear are either dialogue, or you hear like the radio's on and you might hear a song on the radio or something like that. But there's no like no there's no da-na-na-na, there's none of that. There's no music. I kind of think it works for this one for me. The kills, there's at least like 3 pretty damn good solid kills. A couple of fist pump ones, you're like, yes. So congratulations to my my fellow Canadian on your kill choices. There's a great hook one. Great, it is awesome. The kills are awesome. So for the characters, I'm just looking at my notes here. The characters, it's either a 0, maybe I'll give it a 0.5. I'm going through my notes here. I'll give it a 0.5 for the characters. They're typical standard slasher characters, so they're kind of annoying, and they're all kind of annoying. There's a final girl, but like I don't care about her either. So like we're not talking like Terrifier 2, where you had a final girl and you're like, wow, she's great, like she's fighting back and she's an amazing character. Or obviously like a Jamie Lee or something like that. I happen to like Alice, Lisa Wilcox's character in Nightmare on Elm Street Part 4. This character is just there. I guess they're making it more realistic-ish, but the characters do a lot of stupid things. So even without the characterizations, they do a lot of dumb things. Like they're just standing around half the time. You're like, well, try to like run. Like this one girl, which is a great kill, guaranteed, but she's just standing there like, she runs away. She tries to run. There's like a cliff or something, and then she's like, "Oh no! Well, you can run left or right. Like you're not like stuck on a friggin' forward plane or whatever." I don't. It's like some weird things. The guy gets axed in the leg, and it's like, oh, and it's like, you seem okay. I don't know. It's weird. And there's a part where like the guy's got a gun to the guy, and he comes really close to the killer, who the killer's faking dead, and then he's like, okay, here, take the gun. Why are you exchanging weapons like, less than 1 foot away from the guy? Like, it's just stupidness, right? Like, go further back and change. Like, I don't know. So there's a lot of dumb things. I kind of like where they were going. Like, okay, these are just, kind of regular teens or whatever, or adolescents, whatever the hell they are. I can't tell the age. And you're like, yeah, okay. So it's a token. I'm giving it a 0.5. Really, it's kind of a 0. But they're okay. Just like okay. The enjoyment factor is a tough one. I kind of enjoyed this movie. The kills were good. The killer looked cool with his kind of old school firefighter mask thing. That was kind of neat. I'll give it a 1.5. I definitely probably will watch it again. I'm not sure if I can recommend it. That's where I'm stuck. So for me, I look at, did I like it? Yeah, I liked it. Would I watch it again? Yeah, I'd probably watch this again. Would I consider adding it to my, 4,000 whatever movie collection? Yeah, think I would add it. I'd like to see what the features are on it before I purchased it. Can I recommend it? This is where I'm getting stuck. So for my personal opinion, I'm giving it a 6 out of 10. 5 out of 10 is sort of like a marginal pass if everything gets a 1. So this is getting a marginal pass. It's getting your 6 out of 10. It is what I thought it was gonna be. So I would, if I was just talking to my friends about it, I'd probably say, yeah, it's like a 7 or 7.5, right? When you translate that to my system, I can't really go higher than 6 out of 10, though that sounds low. I actually overall still kind of like this movie. I am a sucker for slasher movies, and if all you got to do is give me like 2 or 3 good deaths, somewhat interesting looking killer, and then you've got me, right? So overall, the highlights were the way it was shot. I thought was nice. I do like the deaths; they're very good, and the killer looked pretty good. And you got to see what he was doing. I thought that was neat. So neat concept. I think. I'm interested to see where they go from here, if this will be a continuation of something, or if they'll, maybe they'll do a new movie. I don't know. But that's it. 6 out of 10. I did like the movie. It's very difficult to recommend it because it's just like these other experimental movies. You're going to know, I would suggest this. Maybe watch like 15 minutes or something, right? And if you're like, yeah, this is not happening, shut it off. Just like Skinamarink. Watch about 15 minutes. If you're just like, yeah, this is like not for me, then it's not for you. Same with Ennis Men, any of these things, because they're all this kind of experimental style. So there you go. All right, everybody. If you like my space system, please like the video. Consider subscribing to the channel. That's it. Until next time.